I'm James Robert Hoffman. I was an E4 radarman aboard the PCF-67 in Cát, South Vietnam. We were off station attached to a Coast Guard cutter up near Nha Trang, working for 30 days, 2 boats, 2 crews each boat, and we'd take 2 turns every day, every other day, switching crews, same boat, you know. When we were on patrol one day, we were out doing fire support for a Marine detachment, and got under fire. We were firing mortars, and we had a situation where I loaded a mortar, and it did not fire. It didn't detonate. We couldn't get it to fire, and so the procedure was to we don asbestos gloves, put your hands up around the muzzle, and the gunner would raise the gun, and we would catch the mortar round and then throw it into the river or in the ocean, whichever the case would be. And as I brought my hands up around the muzzle, the round, we call it a cook-off, where the powder increment bags attached to the mortar round ignited from the sparks that were in the gun, and this round fired as I brought my hands up around, and my hands were about this far from the muzzle, when they said, I don't remember everything because I was knocked unconscious. It singed my eyebrows and burnt my forehead with some flash burns, and I was, I was knocked out. They said I did a complete turn about face, fell on the deck, and the unusual thing about that particular incident was Admiral Roy Hoffman, who back then was our squadron commander as captain. He was aboard our boat that day, and my boat officer was Rich McFarland, and he made a comment. He told me this later. He said that about 5 minutes before the incident, he just commented to Captain Hoffman. He said, by the way, we're not related, but he said, I hope we don't have any casualties today while you're aboard. And 5 minutes later, boom. And they took good care of me until they found out I wasn't the captain. I was just the E4, but I'm just kidding about that. No, they did take good care of me. I spent 3 days on the USS Haverfield in their sick bay. I lost my hearing for 3 days. I thought I was going to be deaf. That was a very scary thing. You know, you're a young man at 20, 21 years old. I had a wife and 2 children. My wife had our daughter while I was in Vietnam. My son was born before I went to Vietnam, and so it was a very trying, difficult time for us all at the time. And those are things that really stood out in my mind more than anything. I was involved in probably 18 firefights while I was there. Another incident we had down in the southern part of the country near Antoy was we went in on there were 5 boats in the raid. We went into a place called the Bodie River, which was a very hot spot. As you probably heard a number of testimonies about that particular place. Joe Ponder on the 31 boat got wounded there, got a round through his leg and his knee, and he's still in a wheelchair today. And then, several others. We were the last boat going in, which means when you're coming out, you're the first boat coming out. And I'll remember as we went in, we were obviously at heightened alert, and we got in several miles up the river, and we hadn't encountered anything, and so they gave us an order to turn around and head out. So, and we had the news crew aboard the boat. I think it was NBC, I'm not sure. And back then there was 16mm films. I wish I had a copy of it because they were filming this whole thing, and we had the cameraman aboard our boat as well as a woman, I think her name was Liz Trotter. She was the anchor woman. She was aboard the boat, and as we turned the boats around, that's when they hit us. We started getting machine gun fire from both banks, as well as some rocket fires on all the boats, and it got very hot. And I was driving our boat, and I remember the boat officer telling me to get out of here quick, and I spun the boat around because you could do that pretty quick, and we started headed out, and I remember seeing these red tracers. It looked like lines in front of us, which was every 4th round is a red tracer, but it looked like lines of a fence as we went through this, and the entire boat got peppered with bullets, and the windows were blown out. The compass in front of me took a round. It hit a round hit between my hands on the helm, and I remember I had 7 bullet holes in my seat. The light was hanging by the wires as we got out. It only lasted a few minutes by the time we got out of there. But you just react. and then you try to assess things after the fact. And it was really, I believe, the grace of God that nobody was injured. All those bullets hit that boat. I mean, nothing. Nobody got hurt. A boat officer, he was seated next to me here, and I was in this seat. And somehow, miraculously, all this stuff firing around your, glass flying, nobody got a scratch. That's something else. That stands out in my mind tremendously. And then, of course, there were a lot of other similar incidents. I remember one other time we were traveling up a river, and I was driving, and it was very shallow. We could get into about 5.5 feet of water, or a little less sometimes, depending on the mud. And we were scraping brush on both sides of the boat as we're moving this little canal, which is a very weird, eerie feeling, especially when, you know, they could have been in bushes and threw a grenade on the boat, and anything could have happened. And I was trying to drive the boat as well as taking pictures. I got pictures out the door, you know, with my one hand while I'm driving with the other, and take pictures up the river. And so it got kind of hairy. Then we started taking, somebody started shooting at us. So we set fire to the brush, which was interesting, and they quit firing at us then. We set fire to the grass, and they must have disappeared, went underground, or ran. We don't know, but we opened up with the 50s. Maybe we killed them. We never went ashore to find out. And then I remember in November, October-November of 1968, I was there from April 9th, 68 to 69 April. And I left, anyway, in October-November of 1968, I remember they started what they called Operation Sea Lords. That's when they opened up the rivers to us more so. Before that, we were doing a lot of what we call market time, board and searching trawlers and fishing boats and whatever, and sampans along the coast and in the mouths of the rivers, but never upriver much. But then they opened that all up to search and destroy missions and things like that. And it was a very interesting change in our routine. You never knew when you were going to get under fire. You started, you know, it seemed like they always waited till you were either turning the boat around in a shallow area where you had to sometimes bank it and back it up, or they would wait until you were vulnerable, obviously, and or going around a bend, and they'd usually fire at the lead boat, and many times even the second boat, because whoever, they let one go by and they hit the second boat, then you couldn't turn around and come out right away because they would be damaged with battle damage, so you'd be trapped, both of you, and it got to be a little hairy at times. You know, for a 21-year-old guy, it was very unnerving, to say the least. But I'm glad I came home. I think of a number of men that didn't come home that I knew, and they're still with me. You know, it's that you never forget them. You never forget the times together. Good times too. We had good times. There was no firefights and that.